Heritage conservation and sustainable tourism. The example of Itsukushima Shrine, Japan. Hi, my name is Thomas Schneider, and I was asked to conduct a desktop review as part of my Japanese studies at Cologne University, Germany. I gladly complied, having visited Itsukushima myself about 23 years ago. UNESCO registration is sought by proponents for different reasons. For example, to secure a protected status in international law, encourage funding for heritage preservation, and to increase recognition as a tourist destination. The former two were not key motivations in the case of Miyajima. Miyajima was protected under Japanese law, had a secure credit line from federal, state and local governments, and a steady flow of visitors even before 1996. For the first decade or so after registration, visitor attendance hardly changed. However, UNESCO recognition enhanced prestige. The nearby Atomic Dome, in fact the former Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, was registered at the same time as the Itsukushima Shrine. Hiroshima Miyajima are marketed as a peace destination, including for domestic school trips that traditionally focused on Kyoto and Nara. In the 2010s, the number of international visitors increased due to a combination of relaxed immigration controls and a weakening yen that made Japan travel more affordable, also from other parts of Southeast Asia. The corona pandemic, coincident with the Tokyo Olympics, only temporarily arrested this trend. Visitors to Itsukushima now reach record levels of almost 5 million per year. About 15% are foreigners, though on some days non-Japanese make up over 25% of the total. This has led to calls to limit the influx. As already noted, the substantial costs for shrine repairs and maintenance, over 80% of total operational costs, are covered by national, federal and municipal government subsidies. This means that the separate entrance fees to the shrine, treasure hall and Hokoku Shrine remain reasonable, a total of 600 yen or about €3.23. In fact, it is possible to wander across to the famous Otori for free when the tide is out. However, having made the short ferry train ride from Hiroshima, visitors to Itsukushima are encouraged to also visit other attractions. The hike up Mount Misen, 535 meters above sea level, is recommended, weather allowing. The building near the summit, housing the Eternal Flame, said to have been lit by the monk Kukai in 806 Christian age, fell victim to a fire on 21st May 2026, but will surely be rebuilt, as it was in 2005 when similarly destroyed. To combat the problems associated with mass tourism, rubbish on the streets and a lack of sanitary facilities, the city of Hatsukaishi, where Itsukushima Shrine is located, introduced a 100 yen tourist tax in 2023. Whilst this will hardly constrain the stream of day trippers, tour groups and school children, it will at least pay for the inconvenience caused. At the same time, the visitors are a welcome source of revenue and employment, including for the shrines and temples, especially since accommodation options on Itsukushima remain limited due to strict zoning laws and a lack of nighttime entertainment venues. Whilst the core protected zone covers Itsukushima Shrine and the forested hinterland leading up to Mount Misen, including Daishoin and Daiganji temples, the whole island of Itsukushima has been declared as the buffer zone. This ensures the ancient flora and fauna are protected, making Itsukushima an outdoor laboratory for environmental studies. For example, the tidal flats surrounding the island are monitored to assess the relative impacts of maritime pollution. Management and governance of Itsukushima involves cooperation of diverse stakeholders. The multi-level structure with clearly allocated roles and responsibilities ensures that heritage conservation, environmental protection and tourism are managed as an ensemble. The UNESCO transnational layer ensures transparency, consistency, and best practice. The latest UNESCO periodic report from 2023 identifies key threats. Marine pollution poses stress on the historic timber materials of Itsukushima floating shrine, as do climate change and increasing sea levels. Natural disasters such as earthquakes, typhoons, tsunamis, and lightning strikes may not be preventable, but damage to people and structures can be mitigated by design and procedures. In particular, the landslide risk has been addressed. To preserve the unique island ecosystem, invasive species are controlled. This includes the resident deer, which are really a tourist attraction. The UNESCO report notes that fire prevention and response are in place, even though this cannot eliminate all eventualities in remote and inaccessible terrain. Management focus areas identified in the self-assessment include proper communication of boundaries between all parties and the annual planning process, the need to pass on learning and ensure succession as leadership, artisans and craftsmen age, increased awareness through appropriate school outreach and community initiatives, as well as active visitor management. The recently introduced visitor tax offers opportunities for monitoring and regulating the flow while supporting appropriate investments. Looking back on the 30 years since UNESCO registration in 1996, the appraisal is overwhelmingly positive. UNESCO branding revived interest in the history of Itsukushima, initially domestically but subsequently internationally, and helped build the integrated narrative of a peace destination. Spiritual significance remains unbroken by avoiding excessive entrance fees. Rather than limiting access, the focus is sustainable tourism. Exclusivity is maintained through premium options for high-value visitors who want to experience serenity after the daytime crowds have left and before the next day ferry arrives. Nonetheless, balancing cultural and natural heritage conservation against the pressures of tourism remains an ongoing challenge. Clear boundaries and development restrictions, as well as regular, transparent UNESCO reporting, act as a shield, not a straitjacket. Please enjoy visiting Itsukushima and discovering more about its role in Japan's spiritual and political history. Thank you.